That's the sound of all 4 chimes working here in the strikes and spares we've been working on. I wanted to give you guys an update on how we're doing with this here. Spent quite a bit of time on it already. All the bulbs have been changed on the back box and the top side. The playfield's been continuously polished. It's now been waxed. It has, except for the one bumper cap, which is on back order, that's coming. The other 2 have been replaced by reproduction. We've got lane rollovers that are now not only the correct size, but also the correct color. All the posts have been replaced with brand new red finned Bally posts, and they always look really nice once the game is all lit up and everything, as opposed to the old crummy faded ones. And we have new flipper rubber, the correct color again, yellow versus the red that was on here. Bulbs have been replaced. So we're working on the bottom side now, but I mean, you can see the gloss on it. Look at the reflection of the back side in there. That's here, I'll give you another example. I mean, that's pretty good reflection. That's pretty good gloss on this playfield for being pretty much almost, it was over 35 years old, 30 years old, something like that, whatever. But anyway, in taking apart all of the playfield parts and undoing all the targets and whatnot on the bottom side, when we were working on it and reassembling everything was as we were putting together the playfield, a couple of problems occurred. I realized that as we tried to start a game, that it wouldn't start, and the player 1 display would then change from what it is now to the credit and match display, which was kind of strange. And even if I took the ball out and started it manually, the game would the CPU would boot, but switches weren't working. And it turns out that here's what was not working: the what is it, number 8 pin, the saucer wasn't working. The P wasn't working, the target wasn't working, the out hole was not working. And by not working, I mean in switch test you could press it, it wouldn't show up. As a matter of fact, the first thing that happened was the P was stuck on. And like I was telling you guys about those capacitors on those switches tend to go open or flake out over time. So here's the P target. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. Here's the P target right here. Okay, and here's the capacitor. Now, of course, I clipped it, and that stopped getting stuck in the switch test, so that worked that out. But that didn't exactly point to what else was going on here. So we checked all the other switches, and again, the other switch wasn't working was the bottom right, top right pop bumper. If you looked at all the switch matrices on this, and without even looking at the schematics on it, if you look at them, they all have on the switches, and I'll see if I can show up here. They were all connected. The common thing was they had the orange return wire. Each switch has a return and a strobe, or a column and a return. So the common theme again for all 4 of these switches, and I checked with the matrix, and it is, they were all in the same return. Was the orange wire. So I said, all right, so something's got to be shorting, because what would happen is you'd press a switch and lights would go on, and it was all craziness. Well, so I kept looking to see where it could have been shorted, and it turns out that we actually had 2 things going on here. But when I replaced the slingshot here, because I had to take it apart to fix it, the harness here got stuck underneath the corner of the tab, and it actually pinched a different wire. It had nothing to do with the switches, but we thought that was the problem. Because that actually had the same return wire as the start switch, and I figured, okay, maybe something's just getting shorted through that line and crossing everything up. But that wasn't it. It turns out I had to keep looking, and in order to get out all of the SPAR, the spare, and all those 5 switches, some of them had a lamp, a GI lamp, right behind the switch, and you had to pull those out. So they were loose. When I put those back, you can see the corner of this one here. Right here. It turns out that when you put this one back in, this part of the harness, as you can see here, was right next to it, got pinched. And guess which one was pinched underneath it? That's right, the orange wire. I know this is really hard to see, but it's right there. The orange wire got pinched underneath it, and of course that side is the ground side on the GI circuit, and the control. I'm sorry, that's not GI, that's controlled lamps. So what was happening was that when the orange return line when you press the switch, was then shorting to the ground side on some of those controlled lamp circuits and crossing everything up. So of course we unhooked this, unpulled it out, no longer have the short, and now of course everything works fine again. So you got to be careful when you're putting this stuff back together. Double check your work, try to find out, make sure you don't pinch any wires, because again, it didn't even look like it. It didn't even look like the insulation was pinched. But obviously it was, and again, that fixed the problem. Now, flippers, new coil stops, new sleeves, new springs, new plunger and link. We left the cranks because they were fine, no problem there. Both sides. EOS switches will get done today, that's not a problem. But of course, they're already playing way better. They're not sticking. They've got a nice snap to them. That's the way they should sound. Not like some dull thud. We've started to replace some of these lamps and whatnot up here, but there's a bunch of lamp sockets that are bad, and we got to fix those too. Again, we've done a lot of playfield switches. We have to replace all those capacitors on all those switches to make sure that they operate well. Sorry about the camera work, guys. I remember I was telling you before that credit match display was all burnt out, and I was going to take a spare display and replace it. Even though the pinouts or the connector pins are the same, it turns out the pinouts are obviously very different because of how the display operates. So even though I had a display with the same glass in it, I didn't have the display that had the same board itself, and it's an A2817 and the dash 15 versus the 21, I think is what it was. So I took the glass, I desoldered the glass, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but I'll show you what happened. Desoldered the entire glass out of the display assembly, and this was the original one. And again, you guys might be able to see this on this, but there's all those dots and everything back there. Yeah, those are all burn marks. I mean, that's this display glass, even though it turns on, is really shot. There's the burn. I mean, again, for this, because it only operates these two right and these two middle digits here. Those are the ones that get used, and they're all burnt. So again, we desoldered all the pins. They're like a little comb. They're all flexible. Took that out of the display. I, again, did the same thing. Took the display glass out of my known good working display and reinstalled it. And, of course, works just fine now that it's on the correct board. So the glass is the same. We replaced that. That's not a problem. I was telling you this other bottom right and player 4 display was also flaking out. The bottom segment was not working or flaking. It was kind of intermittent, on and off, and flaking out. Well, we replaced, desoldered all of the connector header pins. We desoldered all of the glass pins on the bottom of the board, and then resoldered everything, and that problem has gone away. So most likely a cold solder joint or crack in one of those pins there. So that's been taken care of. Other than that, the game's been pretty reliable. It does play pretty quick. Again, we've got some. We got to change the leg plates out. We got to change those capacitors on the switches and do some minor adjusting. And again, I'm waiting on that pop upper cap here. So the bottom side will get bulbs. The top side will get another wax when we're done, and this will pretty much be ready to go. But it's coming together nicely. Again, it plays way better than it did. It's a lot more fun now that everything is working. And again, those flippers are not sticking, and the displays are working. And we adjusted the settings on it. It was a 5-ball setting, didn't have extra ball, and playing around with the adjustments on that to kind of get a sweet spot for the actual gameplay itself. That will be a little bit more fun as well. Anyway, I'll try to get some action of this once it's finished, and we can show you how it is playing. Hopefully we'll have a volunteer help us do that, and we'll post that as well. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks again for tuning in. Over and out.